been defeated by our blessed King. So when the fear of death sweeps over you on that final day, remember Jesus has conquered the grave. Now Lazarus, he was laid in a cold, dark tomb, but the giver of life would be there soon. For death's chains had bound him and took away his life, but those chains were broken when Jesus said, "Arise." Sin has been defeated by our blessed King. So when the fear of death sweeps over you on that final day, remember Jesus has conquered the grave. When the fear of death sweeps over you on that final day, remember Jesus has conquered the grave. In my robe of white, I will fly away to that land so fair. Meet my Jesus there, it will be so grand. When I get to that land in my robe of white, I will fly away. First I'll hear the trumpet sound, then all the saints will be heaven bound. We will cross over Jordan wide, stop and view the other side. There I'll see those holy hills, my mansion he has built. I'll be the first one in the line, gonna see my name in the book of life. In my robe of white, I will fly away to that land so fair. Meet my Jesus there, it will be so grand. When I get to that land in my robe of white.
Hello. Welcome to Hasty Baptist Church. As you can tell, your pastor is not here tonight, so I will be filling in for him. I'm going to keep my eyes on these two ladies right here at front. But no, Daniel is on vacation this week, which he deserves a vacation. All preachers do. So I texted him yesterday, asked him if he was having a good time. He said they were having a blast. So just pray that he'll continue to have a good vacation and get the needed rest that he needs for a preacher. So I guess tonight we'll go over announcements, and correct me if I'm doing something out of order, but I know Sunday is Old Fashions Day. And then directly following the service, we'll be having a luncheon downstairs. So if you have any old clothes back from the 30s or 40s or so it's a good time though. Get your old clothes out and we'll have a good time. And then, like I said, directly following the service, we'll have a luncheon downstairs. And then I know Father's Day is coming up, and I know the kiddos are going to have donuts right outside the children's nursery at 10:30. Not this Sunday, but the next Sunday, right? And then, of course, the following Sunday is Father's Day.
And the women are doing breakfast.
That's right. When is that?
The 17th.
The 17th. So the women are doing breakfast on the 17th at 8:30. Saturday morning. So we just start all over again. So on the 17th, we're going to have a breakfast hosted by the women for the fathers. And then on the 18th, which is Father's Day, we're going to have donuts outside the children's classroom at 10:30. Then, of course, Father's Day will be recognized at the 11 o'clock service. Is that correct? Are there any other announcements that I've overlooked?
Natasha did put the list out there on the table
For VBS. So VBS list is out here on the table. It has been changed. I said it a couple of weeks ago, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers get fewer and fewer each and every year. So I know several people that were willing to help out that weren't going to be here that week, so they revised the VBS dates, but we still need, or Natasha still needs all the help she can get. I think I've already seen some names signed up, so if you can help, even if it's just for one day, sign up. I know she can use all the help she can get. Anything else I may have overlooked? No? Okay, Dole, I turn it over to you.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see this crowd on Wednesday night and the pastor gone, because usually when the pastor's gone, people stay home. But we have our normal crowd, maybe even more. Well, let's turn to page 522. We'll sing all three verses, When the Morning Comes. Trials dark on every hand, and we cannot understand all the way that God will lead us to that blessed promised land. But He'll guide us with His eye, and we'll follow till we die. We will understand it better by and by. By and by, when the morning comes, when the saints of God are gathered home, we will tell the story how we overcome. We will understand it better by and by. Off their failed, disappointments have prevailed, and we've wandered in the darkness, heavy-hearted and alone. But we're trusting in the Lord, and according to His word, we will understand it better by and by. By and by, when the morning comes, when the saints of God are gathered home, we will tell the story how we overcome. We will understand it better by and by. Temptations, hidden snares often take us unaware, and our hearts are made to bleed for some spotless word or deed. And we wonder why the test when we try to do our best. We will understand it better by and by. By and by, when the morning comes, when the saints of God are gathered home, we will tell the story how we overcome. We will understand understand it better by and by. I had to bring my book up closer because they changed the words on me, and then by the time my eyes focused, I missed a half a line. Thank y'all for carrying me through.
We will go, we'll have prayer requests. I know I have a couple of them. I have a team member that works for me. His 1-year-old daughter, as of 10 minutes ago, she's still in surgery, but she's 1 year old and they found a tumor in her abdomen. So they're taking that out along with one of her kidneys. And then I think she'll have to have chemo and radiation. So just pray that that goes well. Her name is Madison Thomas. And also got another text message today. One of my friends, his wife has breast cancer, and she's not doing very well. So if you can remember her as well, her name is Alma Vassie. So be with that family. They have 3 small children, and it was stage 3 or stage 4. But just remember them as well. Any other prayer requests? Yes, ma'am.
She'll call me before I leave and said that Earl has a blood clot in his right leg.
Okay.
Today, I was gonna have to go to the ambulance since she's up here in East Allen. But he has a blood chest, it's a regular blood clot. And if I transmit a clot, it's not going to make it out.
Did they take him to the hospital? Earl?
He drove himself evidently.
Oh, okay, he drove himself. Okay. Yeah, blood clots are nothing to mess around with, for sure. Any other prayer requests? Yep. I didn't realize that there was a forest fire up there. I mean, yesterday I noticed it was kind of hazy here, but I didn't know anything about it until Lexi said something about it. And so, yeah, definitely pray for the firefighters. They have a big job on their hands, containing those wildfires. It's that season, so we need to keep all of our law enforcement and firemen and EMS folks lifted up in prayer.
Continue to be with Jack Moore. I understand he had surgery on his foot this week. I think they put something out yesterday, was it? Or was it Monday?
Was it Monday? But he had surgery on his foot, and I knew he sent out a text message yesterday or this morning. Jack did. So we'll continue to lift him up. I know he's battling several health issues right now. So definitely need to keep him lifted up in prayer. Anybody else? Trying to think if we had. Of course, we want to pray for Lacey. Remember him and Jean? Denise, that's right. You have a procedure. To what number? Okay. Okay. So definitely keep Denise lifted up in our prayers. Dole. Remember, keep our kiddos lifted up in prayer too. It's just the world we live in right now is just crazy. It's just.
The families impacted by that shooting at their graduation in Virginia.
Did I read where a father and a son? Was that at the same event?
I'm not aware of the particulars. I know it was a student we just graduated who was killed, and an adult who was just a guest there because he probably had relatives graduating. An older man.
Right.
Well, younger than me, but older than you. And so, and then several
of graduations, now until for the next week or so. So Lexi graduates Friday, so definitely want to lift up, just for safety purposes, Definitely need to keep our kiddos in prayer for sure. Are there any other prayer requests?
Tim and Teresa Tim that sings with me, they're taking care of Teresa's mother, and she's in the last stage of, it's either Alzheimer's or dementia anyway.
Yeah.
Remember them because it's getting rough.
Yeah. Being a caretaker can be challenging. Definitely keep them in our prayers. Any others? If not, Mr. Reed, would you mind praying for us tonight?
Bless this day. Thank you, Father, for this wake up another day. Thank you, Father, for waking up Jesus on the mind and our heart. We want to serve you as live as close to you as we possibly can. Father, this meeting request made up, and I said he'd be working with the prayer. What's this person made about 1-year-old baby, I believe it is. I pray for that baby, pray Father for the family. That they will do a lot of hardships, dear Father, and I pray you take it. Put your hand healing on it, Father, again. And then for others, Father, that mention, I can't remember all of them as you do. I couldn't give it up. You can do everything. It's been said or going to be said. We thank you for that. Father, we thank you for the Lord Jesus Christ that gave us the opportunity by his shed blood that we born into the family of God. We thank you for that. Thank you, Father, for the blessing that you've given us down through the years. Thank you, Father, for being our roots when we need you. We never get a business when we talk to you, what we want to. Father, I pray for each and every person that's present here tonight. I pray, Father, to touch our hearts. Pray, Father, to bring us closer to you. We want to serve you more than we already have. And I pray for the crew, for the family. Father, I pray that you give them a good rest, a good time, that they on vacation. And they start back. I pray, Father, just put a ring angel around the car, protect them as they come back. Father, different ones that probably want to be here tonight and can't cut in. And as they can't be here, I pray for them, so Father, in the home can't get out. I pray for them to bless them. They listen to the radio, internet, whatever. I pray for them. Father, again, we thank you for the good prayer. Thank you for all we've been there and having here and here. Father, help us here tonight to pick up something we can put in our Christian walk and serve you even better. That it won't do in our heart, Father, we be a Christian. Shining lights in our dark world we live in. And then you hear tonight about some of the things that take place across our nation. Father, this country is not the country it used to be. And Father, we're glad that you sing today, tomorrow, forever. We thank you for that. We never change. Father, again, help us here tonight to see Jesus uplifted and glorified. And what you do for us, we give you the honor and the praise and the glory for that. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Well, in listening to the prayer requests and the shootings and things that we have, comes to my mind that a song entitled "People Need the Lord," and that's what we as American needs. And it seems like that everybody is wanting to shut him out, but I don't know what people do without the Lord. Yeah, that's what happens. To know the blessings of the Lord. I've been off work this week, and of course, Judy had come home for lunch today, and after she left, I started washing the dishes, and just standing there washing the dishes, and I had my radio playing. Just when I needed it, the song came on, "I've Heard of the Land." And I tell you what, I had a good time standing at the sink washing dishes and tears flowing down my eyes. You know, as we get older and things that we've been taught up through our life, I just don't know why people wouldn't want the blessings of the Lord. They think the world has more to give, but if they only know the joy of the Lord, then they wouldn't want the world. And I'm glad, so glad that I was brought up in a Christian home. I've heard of a land, and I plan one day to make that my home. Well, this song, the next song says, rescue the perishing. And if we take heed of what the preacher preached Sunday, we need to be out rescuing the perishing. Let them know about Christ and let them know what awaits them should they die without Christ. And if they know Christ, look what's awaiting for them when they leave this world. Well, let's turn to page 559. We'll do our best to get through this. I tell you, I had a good time at home today, so we can have a good time here tonight too. If I can see with the tears in my eyes. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying, snatch them in pity from sin and the grave. Weep o'er the erring one, lift up the falling, tell them how Jesus Almighty to save. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying, Jesus is merciful, Jesus will save. Though they are sliding him, still he is waiting, waiting the penitent, the child to receive. Plead with them earnestly, plead with them gently, he will forgive if they only believe. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying, Jesus is merciful, Jesus will save. Down in the human heart, crushed by the tempter, feeling like buried, grace can restore. Touched by a loving heart, wakened by kindness, chords that are broken will vibrate once more. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying, Jesus is merciful, Jesus will save. Rescue the perishing, duty demands it, strength for thy labor the Lord will provide. Back to the narrow way, patiently win them, tell the poor wanderer a Savior has died. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying, Jesus is merciful, Jesus will save. Thank you.
So it won't be long-winded. But I am going to incorporate all of you into the lesson. So I'm going to ask some questions, and I'll need some answers. But the title of the lesson is called God Uses Flawed People to Share Hope to a Flawed World. And it says, throughout Scripture, we see God using imperfect people for the sake of his mission. I never quite understood why Jesus chose the individuals he did, but I'm guessing his reasoning was to further prove the validity of his being. He didn't call the popular, he didn't call the rich or the successful to further his ministry, but rather he called the poor and the broken. Can you imagine how confused the Pharisees and the religious leaders must have been while they were looking at the team of people the proclaimed Savior had gathered together? You had tax collectors and fishermen. Sure, they were probably not smelling the best. And there's others. From an outside perspective, we can see that it didn't matter where people were from, what they had done, or who they used to be. Jesus used all people for the good of his will. And here are some examples of people that were used for the greatness of his glory. And you guys tell me, I want to name off several individuals, and you try to think of some of their flaws, okay? Because we all have flaws. I know I have a bunch of them. Just ask Heather. Yeah, or my girls. But Abraham, can you think of a flaw that he had? He was up in his years of age, right? My lesson here says he was old, but
You were afraid to use that word.
no, I wasn't afraid to use it. What about Job? Did he have any flaws? Or how did God end up using him? I never thought about it this way, but he really, if you think about it, not only did he lose his family, but his entire business. So basically he went bankrupt. But God restored him to what? Twice as much? Or I forgot exactly, but it was a lot more than what he had when he first endured all these hardships. What about Moses? What kind of flaw did he have? Yeah, that's right. Good job, Dole. He did have a speech problem. What about Gideon? I know Reed's wanting to answer. He's looking at me. What about Gideon? What kind of flaw did Gideon have? Was he afraid? He had fear. Yeah, he had Samson. There you go. He liked the women. He did. He liked the women. Yeah, Samson was, there's all kinds of, it's amazing how I went down this list and I'm thinking, wow, God really can use imperfect people to further his kingdom. How about Rahab? Yeah, she was a prostitute. What about the Samaritan woman? She had a lot of husbands, but God still used her, Sometimes marriages don't work out, but yet a lot of people think, well, God can't use me now because of whatever reason, but he can use anybody. He used a Samaritan woman. What about Jacob? Yep. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. He was a cheater. And of course, we know what David, there's several things that come to my mind about David. Committed adultery. He murdered someone. He lied. Right, there's 3 of the commandments. But he went on to be the greatest king that Israel has ever had up to the present moment. Yep. About Jonah. That's right. So he ran from God. I didn't know a whole lot about Naomi, so I had to read up on her. Does anybody know much about her? Yeah. Yeah. So she was a little bitter, as you can imagine. Yep. What about Peter? We all know who Peter is, one of the disciples that loved Jesus. Yeah. Denied Jesus 3 times. Can you imagine, you're walking with him for 3 years daily, and then when it comes down to crunch time, you deny him, you even say a bad word. I don't know this man.
He let his mouth run away with him. And, we're all guilty of that from time to time.
We are.
Some of us more than others.
That's right.
Talk about me.
Our tongue is sometimes our worst enemy. What about Zacchaeus? Was he money hungry? What about all the disciples? They couldn't even pray. Instead, they went to sleep. On one of the most, for Jesus, it was probably one of the most challenging nights that he had. And he was asking his disciples, please just pray for me. And they're all over there sleeping. And of course, we know about Paul. And before he became a Christian, there's no telling how many Christians he killed. But there's a whole list of individuals in the Bible that were truly imperfect. But look how God used them. It says, if you ever feel like you aren't worthy enough, remember that Jesus used a bunch of flawed people to share hope to a flawed world. In him we find renewal and mending. And I highlighted this next sentence. It says, Jesus didn't call the equipped, but he equipped the called. And no matter what you've been through in life, remember that the same power that conquered the grave lives within you. And then one of the main verse for the lesson tonight comes from Romans 8:28. Does anybody know it by heart? Word for word. And the other day I was right outside the preacher's office where there are all the magazines, and I grabbed this little book right here, and I was reading it, and I thought it kind of fits into the lesson. And it's called The Strength of Weakness. And I wanted to read it real quick. It's only like 2 pages, and you can see how our weaknesses are used to glorify God. And it says, author and businessman Harvey Mackay told the story of a 10-year-old boy named Mark who wanted to study judo despite the fact that he had just lost his left arm in an automobile accident. So here's a 10-year-old boy wanting to study judo, does not have a left arm. And Susan, I guess you would know about this because Reagan is in that sort of how it's important. We're lost anyway if you don't have an arm, especially in a sporting activity. It says, Mark began his lesson with an aged Japanese judo master, and he was doing well. But after 3 months had passed, he had only been taught one move, and he questioned the master. This is the only move you'll ever need to know, was the master's reply. Perplexed, but trusting, Mark kept training, and several months later entered his first tournament. Surprising himself, Mark won the first 2 matches. The third match was more difficult, but soon his opponent became impatient, and Mark deftly used the lone move to win the match. He was now in the finals, but this time his opponent was much larger, much stronger, and far more experienced. Mark was nervous, and it was shown in the match. The referee, concerned for Mark's welfare, called a timeout. He was about to stop the seemingly imbalanced match, and Mark's master intervened. Let him continue. So the match resumed, and Mark's opponent made a critical mistake. Instantly, Mark used his move to pin him, which resulted in him winning the match and the tournament. On the way home, Mark reviewed all his matches and moves with his master, finally summoning up the courage to ask the question on his mind: how did I win the tournament with only one move? You won for two reasons, the judo master answered. First, you've almost mastered one of the most difficult throws in all judo. And second, the only known defense for the move is for the opponent to grab your left arm. Mark's weakness had become his greatest strength. Each one of us have a generous assortment of weaknesses that we desperately like to replace. We struggle in our relationships. We know our marriage could be better. We are not the parents we always thought we'd be. Our children seem to bring out the worst in us. Our weaknesses are magnified every day, and worse, we are now noticing them in our children. We feel defeated and powerless. We know things could be better if we could just change, but we can't. In our jobs, many of us have come to the depressing realization that we are not quite as talented or gifted as we thought we were. Others are passing us by. We have tried for years to corral impure thoughts and pursue holiness with no real progress. We're racked by guilt every time we gossip, but we can't seem to stop. White lies make us look around or make us sound better and seem to come without thought or effort. Our bodies fail. Diabetes, heart problems, backaches, stomach ailments, migraines, worn out joints, bad vision, and many other ailments weaken us. Emotionally, we become more and more fragile. Stress and anxiety torment us. Increasingly, smaller things bother us, and our emotional batteries run down quicker than they used to. Weakness frightens us. We want to feel bold and powerful. The common perception is that weakness equals the lack of power. The logic seems clear and obvious, but it's wrong. The biblical perspective on weakness is counterintuitive, and therein lies its great advantage. For a Christian, weakness does not equal lack of power. Our weakness is an opportunity to experience God's power. And just like Mark, his master only stood in one move, and he won the tournament. And like the other individuals that we learned about tonight, with all their flawed baggage, you can still be used. So regardless of what you've done, don't sit there and say, well, God can't use me because I did this or did that. If he can use David, who murdered someone, which is probably one of the worst sins you could commit. All sin is really bad, but you think murder, like, wow, committed adultery. You have a prostitute, you have a womanizer. You have even one of his disciples that denied Christ 3 times. But they were all used, and we're still talking about them 2,000 some years later. So our weaknesses is God's strength. And that is the lesson for tonight. Any comments or questions? Mm-hmm. Right.
That would be hard. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, I thought they people do something bad.
Right.
I've got a reason to find it out. We just don't know what the thing, probably our reason.
Right.
Still, I just thought that goes, and that's 2 hours, and, was there something that they don't test? I guess I'll have to wait to get to heaven and ask questions I wanna ask, because there's nothing whole lot wrote about it, just, maybe just a chapter, or half a chapter, and that's it, they move off the scene. Some of the things they did, the person would go over.
I think a lot of people think you have to be this perfect saint, but we're never going to achieve that. And God can use anybody. And I think a lot of times, or at least that's the excuse they may use for not getting in church. I've done too many bad things, but we serve a Savior that forgives. And sometimes we need to forgive ourselves, but God definitely uses flawed people, even in the world that we live in today. The boys that want to be girls, and girls that want to be boys. It's us Christians. It's time for us to stand up and really say something. And we're starting to see a little bit of that backlash on the news, where certain corporations are losing money. And it's time that we, as Christians, we need to start speaking up. Me included.
We talk about bad times, but every person we name was living in bad times. And so we can't use that as an excuse. The sad thing about some of those examples that you read is that they changed after God touched them.
Right.
And we claim as Christians to have been touched by God at the point of our salvation experience. And yet, we don't always demonstrate that we were touched, that we are constantly touched by God. And, I think our chief mistake, if that's what our sins are, is that we fail to remember that we're touched by God. We're supposed to be special.
Right. We are Christians, are held to a higher standard, so we really have to be, which is good. I want to be held to a higher standard. I want to be held accountable. Our goal is to walk that straight and narrow path. I'm really glad that we serve a God that will forgive us
If we do make a mistake, He's faithful and just to forgive us.
Well, I think Joel's a witness tonight about standing at the kitchen sink and doing dishes and experiencing a moment with God. And, you come out and standing at the kitchen sink doing dishes, I'm just praying for his bill. And so, so he testified to me tonight.
And though we're probably going to tell you in Judah, but Hasty Baptist Church is very fortunate to have you worshiping with us. We really are. I don't tell you enough, but your family, the whole entire family is very special. Anything else before we close in prayer?
Our people done a good job tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for,
One of the worst things I don't like doing is get up in front of people. Can't stand doing that at work. It's just it's a challenge for me. So I appreciate that.
You don't have to call you much.
I know. That's exactly what I was thinking a while ago. Or Gideon. Wayne, would you mind dismissing us in prayer, please?
Father, we're thankful that we come back to your house. Thank you. receive that power and to live with the power that she wants to have. We pray again for our pastors, he's away, and she give him safety. We pray, Father, for the ones that know about that are sick and suffering. We pray your blessings and lead upon their lives according to your will. We thank you again for each of these that's come out tonight. We pray for safety